There are 7 specific things that the average person buys every single month that are quietly making them poorer. Not in obvious ways. Not in ways that show up on a single bank statement and shock you. In slow, invisible ways that compound over years into a gap between where you are financially and where you could have been. Kofi found the first one on a Tuesday morning when he was running through his card transactions looking for a charge he did not recognize. He found the charge. But he also found 6 other things he did recognize, that he could not actually justify when he sat with them honestly for 60 seconds each. By the time Kofi had finished that Tuesday morning exercise, he had identified $430 per month, leaving his account toward things that were not making his life better. Not luxuries he had chosen deliberately. Things that had simply accumulated the way dust accumulates, slowly and without decision. Today we are going to go through 7 of the most common categories of spending that quietly drain wealth from people who consider themselves financially responsible. We are going to look at exactly why each one feels justified in the moment and exactly what it costs over time. And we are going to look at what Kofi did instead, which turned out to be considerably more interesting than simply not spending. By the end of this video, you will know which of these 7 things is in your own financial life. And more importantly, you will know what to do about it starting today. Rule 1. Stop buying convenience you could own once. Convenience spending is one of the most seductive categories in modern consumer life because it is always solving a real problem. You are tired and you do not want to cook, so you order delivery. You are in a hurry and you cannot find a parking spot, so you take a ride. You forgot your water bottle, so you buy one. Each individual decision makes complete sense in the moment. But convenience spending has a hidden cost that most people never calculate. It is not just the price of the individual transaction. It is the price of the permanent infrastructure of inconvenience that you are paying to maintain. Kofi was spending $68 per month on water, bottled water purchased individually throughout the month, because he did not own a good reusable bottle that he remembered to carry. A quality insulated water bottle costs between $30 and $45 once. Kofi had been spending $68 per month for 14 months. That is $952 spent to avoid a $40 purchase. The convenience cost was not $68. It was $912 of unnecessary spending because the one-time solution had never been bought. Go through your last 3 months of spending and look specifically for convenience purchases that are recurring. The food delivery that happens because you do not have a basic weekly meal structure. The cab rides that happen because you do not keep a transit card loaded. The single-use purchases that happen because you do not own the reusable version. Each one of these is a monthly tax you are paying to avoid a one-time investment that would cost less than 3 months of the tax itself. The minimalist rule here is simple. Own the solution once. Pay for convenience never. Every recurring convenience purchase is a one-time purchase you have not made yet. Rule 2. Stop buying the entry-level version of things you use every day. This sounds counterintuitive. Minimalism is supposed to be about spending less. But there is a category of spending where buying cheap consistently costs more than buying well once. And it is the category of daily use items, the things you interact with every single day of your life. Kofi had been buying the same type of cheap kitchen knife every 11 months for 6 years. Each knife cost $14. He had spent $84 on knives over 6 years. A quality knife that would have lasted those same 6 years and beyond costs between $40 and $60. He spent $84 to avoid spending $50. The cheap option was $34 more expensive than the quality option over the same period. This pattern repeats across dozens of daily use categories. Cheap shoes that wear out in 8 months versus quality shoes that last 4 years. Cheap cooking pans that warp and scratch versus a single well-made pan that outlasts a decade of daily use. Cheap earphones replaced 3 times a year versus one pair maintained carefully for years. In every case, the cheap replacement cycle costs more than the quality single purchase. The calculation is straightforward. Take any daily use item you replace regularly. Multiply the replacement cost by the number of times you have replaced it in the last 5 years. Then compare that total to the cost of one quality version that would have lasted the same period. In most cases, the quality version was cheaper. You just never saw the full cost of the cheap version because it arrived in small installments. Buy quality once for the things you use every day. Buy nothing or buy cheap for the things you rarely use. That is the complete rule. Most people have it exactly backwards. Rule 3. Stop buying identity. A significant portion of what most people spend money on is not the product itself. It is the version of themselves that owning the product is supposed to communicate. The brand of trainers that signals a certain lifestyle. The car that says something specific about who you are professionally. The watch that belongs to a category of person you want to be associated with. This is not a moral failing. It is a deeply human instinct. We are social animals and objects have always carried social meaning. The problem is not that objects communicate identity. The problem is that the cost of using objects to communicate identity has become extraordinarily high and the communication itself has become extraordinarily unreliable. Most people do not notice your watch. Most people do not register your car beyond a general category. The social signal you are paying a premium to send is being received by far fewer people than you imagine and interpreted correctly by even fewer. The identity purchase is an expensive broadcast to an audience that is largely not listening. Kofi spent 4 months tracking every purchase he made that was a step up from a functional version of the same product. A slightly more expensive coffee because of the cup it came in. A gym with a better postcode than a functionally identical gym closer to his home. A jacket from a brand rather than a jacket that was otherwise indistinguishable. When he added them up, the identity premium, the extra money spent specifically for signal rather than function, was $91 per month. $91 per month spent on a broadcast most people were not receiving. That is $1,092 per year. Over 10 years, invested rather than spent, that identity premium becomes approximately $17,000 at historical market returns. $17,000 spent buying a signal that most people missed. The minimalist rule is this: buy the function. Let the identity follow from how you live rather than from what you own. The person who is genuinely interesting does not need an object to say so. Rule 4. Stop buying time you do not use. This rule specifically addresses a category of purchase that has exploded in the last decade. Memberships and platforms and services sold on the promise of access to time. Time you will spend learning something or improving something or enjoying something that in practice you rarely or never actually use. The gym membership used twice in the last 6 weeks. The online course platform with 47 courses started and 3 completed. The language learning app that sends you a daily reminder you dismiss without opening. The premium tier of a reading app with a library of books you have not opened. All of these are purchases of time you intended to spend but did not. The psychology behind this category of purchase is well documented. Buying the membership or the course or the app feels like making progress. The purchase itself activates a sense of future accomplishment that substitutes for the actual accomplishment. You feel better after buying the gym membership even before you have been to the gym, because in your mind the purchase represents a future version of yourself who goes to the gym. The problem is that the future version never quite arrives and the monthly charge continues regardless. Kofi found 3 of these in his account. A premium fitness platform he had used 4 times in 5 months. An online learning subscription he had opened twice. A meditation app on a yearly plan he had forgotten he bought. Combined monthly cost, $63. Combined actual usage, negligible. He canceled all 3 in one afternoon and replaced them with free alternatives for the one activity he actually wanted to maintain. The rule here is ruthless. If you have not used it meaningfully in the last 30 days, cancel it today. Not at the end of the month. Today. The version of you that was going to use it has had enough time to show up. If they have not arrived by now, they are probably not coming. Rule 5. Stop buying solutions to problems you created by buying. This is one of the most expensive and least examined cycles in consumer spending. You buy something that creates a new problem. Then you buy something to solve the new problem. Then the solution creates another problem. And the cycle compounds silently for years. The clearest example is storage. Kofi bought things. The things needed somewhere to live. He bought storage solutions, boxes and shelves and organizers to manage the things. The storage solutions took up space. He considered moving to a larger apartment partly because the current one felt cluttered. A larger apartment would have cost him $300 more per month. He was considering spending $3,600 a year in extra rent to house things he had bought and then bought containers to store. When Kofi recognized this cycle, he did not buy more storage. He removed the things that required the storage. He spent one weekend going through everything he owned and removing anything that required a dedicated storage solution to manage. The apartment felt immediately larger. The need for more space disappeared, and the $3,600 per year stayed in his account. Look at your own spending for this pattern. The expensive coffee machine that requires special pods and a descaling kit and a milk frother attachment. The exercise equipment that requires a mat and a rack and a protective floor covering. The hobby that has accumulated an ecosystem of supporting purchases around it. In each case, ask honestly, is the original purchase still earning its place, or has it become the source of a chain of subsequent spending that you would not have made without it? The minimalist rule is, before you buy a solution to a problem, ask whether the problem would disappear if you removed the thing that created it. Often the answer is yes. And removing is always cheaper than solving. Rule 6. Stop buying the upgrade. The upgrade is one of the most sophisticated spending traps in modern consumer culture because it is sold not as a new purchase but as an improvement. You already own the thing. You are simply making it better. The psychological barrier to spending is much lower when the frame is upgrade rather than buy. The phone that works perfectly but is 2 generations old. The car that runs without fault but has been replaced by a newer model with features you looked up but have never needed. The laptop that handles everything you actually do but feels slower than the current version on a benchmark you read about online. The kitchen appliance that has been replaced by a version with one additional function you have never used on the version you own. Kofi had upgraded his phone 3 times in 6 years. Not because any of the phones had stopped working. Because each new version existed and the existence of a better version made the current one feel insufficient. Total cost of 3 upgrades across 6 years. Approximately $1,800 spent on phones that were functional at the time of replacement. The upgrade trap works because of a psychological principle called the hedonic treadmill. The satisfaction from an upgrade fades within weeks of the purchase, and you return to the same baseline level of satisfaction you had before. Then the next version is announced and the cycle begins again. You are not buying more satisfaction. You are renting it for a few weeks at a very high price. The minimalist rule for upgrades is direct. Replace when broken, not when a better version exists. Your current phone, your current car, your current appliances are performing the function they were purchased to perform. The existence of a newer version is not a problem that requires spending to solve. Rule 7. Stop buying to recover. This is the most emotionally honest rule on this list, and also the one that most people will recognize most immediately in their own behavior. Buying to recover is the pattern of using a purchase as an emotional response to stress or exhaustion or disappointment or boredom. It is not the same as buying something you want. It is buying something because of how you feel right now. The online basket filled on a difficult workday. The takeaway ordered not because you are hungry but because the day was hard and you do not want to cook, and spending feels like a small act of control in a day that felt uncontrollable. The new item of clothing bought on a weekend when nothing else is satisfying. The gadget researched obsessively during a period of anxiety as a way of channeling restless energy into something that feels productive. Kofi identified this pattern by doing something unusual. For 1 month, he wrote down his emotional state at the time of every non-essential purchase. Not a detailed journal. Just a single word beside each transaction. Stressed, bored, tired, celebrating, anxious, fine. At the end of the month, the pattern was unmistakable. 73% of his non-essential spending happened when he recorded his state as stressed or tired or bored. 11% happened when he recorded fine. The purchases made in a state of stress or tiredness were almost never things he was glad he had bought 2 weeks later. The purchases made in a state of fine, calm, and deliberate were almost always things that had a genuine place in his life. The emotional state at the point of purchase was a more reliable predictor of whether the purchase was worthwhile than the price of the item or the category it belonged to. The minimalist rule here is not to stop having emotions. It is to create a gap between the emotion and the transaction. Kofi created a simple rule: no non-essential purchase made in a state of stress or exhaustion. If he wanted to buy something while stressed, he wrote it on a list and returned to it in a neutral state. Most items on the list never got purchased. The ones that did were almost always genuinely wanted. So here is the full picture. 7 rules. 7 specific categories of spending that quietly drain wealth from people who consider themselves financially responsible. And one person, Kofi, who found $430 per month sitting inside these 7 categories without a single dramatic sacrifice. Rule 1. Own the solution once. Stop paying a monthly convenience tax for a one-time purchase you have not made yet. Rule 2. Buy quality once for daily use items. The cheap replacement cycle almost always costs more than the quality single purchase. Rule 3. Stop buying identity. Buy the function. Let who you are speak for itself. Rule 4. Cancel what you are not using. If it has not been used meaningfully in 30 days, it will not be used next month either. Rule 5. Before buying a solution, ask whether removing the source of the problem is cheaper than solving it. It usually is. Rule 6. Replace when broken, not when a better version exists. The upgrade trap rents you satisfaction for a few weeks at a very high price. Rule 7. Create a gap between the emotion and the transaction. Most purchases made in stress or exhaustion are regretted 2 weeks later. Most purchases made in a calm, neutral state earn their place. Kofi applied all 7 rules over 4 months. He did not apply them perfectly. He applied them consistently. And consistently imperfect application of a good set of rules outperforms perfect application of no rules at all. At the end of 4 months, his account had an extra $380 per month that had not been there before. Not from a raise. Not from a second income. From 7 rules applied to spending that had previously been invisible. $380 per month invested consistently over 20 years at historical market averages becomes approximately $280,000. $280,000 found not in a high salary or a clever investment strategy, but in 7 categories of spending that were quietly there all along, waiting to be seen. Go through your last 3 months of bank statements this week. Look for one example of each of the 7 rules. Just one per rule. Write them down. Then decide which one you are going to address first. Not all 7 at once. 1. The one that costs the most or bothers you the most or surprises you the most. Start there. And come back to the others one at a time. The wealth was always there, hiding in plain sight inside 7 ordinary categories. You just needed a way to see it. Share this with one person who has ever looked at their bank statement and felt confused about where the money went. Because now they will know exactly where to look. I will see you in the next one.